Virginia Woolf wrote, "One form of immortality is hers undoubtedly. Mary Wollstonecraft is alive and active. She argues and experiments. We hear her voice and trace her influence even now among the living." Margaret Mead wrote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Our cast of characters for John Freed's Love Me Fuseli, a play about Mary Wollstonecraft and her circle of friends.
I'm Philip J. Burns. I'll be playing Spy. Also, Delivery Man, Lamplighter, and George Wetton, Thomas Monkhouse, and Thomas Cox in the courtroom scenes.
I'm Hester Shell. I will be reading two parts, Benjamin, a 10-year-old boy, and Fanny Flute, the Blake's elderly and hard-of-hearing house servant, a comic character a la Moliere, also the woman in the gallery who throws vegetables at the judge.
Hi, my name is Jessie Walters, and I'm playing Sophia Fuseli. So, Fuseli's strikingly beautiful wife and studio model, alright. Her Titania costume makes the most of her breasts, as was the style. And also, I'm Anne Brooks in the courtroom scene.
Yes, I'm Jonas Israel, and I'm playing Henry Fuseli, the gnomish Swiss-born artist. In his early 50s, but trying desperately, God, you wrote this for me, didn't you? Yeah, trying desperately to pass for much younger. Has a slight German accent. Everyone is oddly obsessed with his charisma. Also, Moses Fortune and Constable Singleton in the courtroom scenes.
Chris Porter. I'll be playing Joseph Johnson, progressive publisher and benefactor extraordinaire of practically everyone in the room, in his mid-50s. Fuseli, his manner should be Father Christmas or the benevolent uncle out of a Jane Austen novel. Also Judge Justice in the courtroom scenes.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Jessup, and I am playing Mary Wollstonecraft, the feminist, writer of the Vindication of the Rights of Woman, spiritual mistress of Fuseli, and chief assistant for the printer-publisher Joseph Johnson, approximately in her early 30s.
I'm Devin McCoy. I'll be playing William Blake, Will, the engraver, poet, artist, mystic in his mid-30s, already tending to portliness. Also the bailiff and Cornelius Swift in the courtroom scenes.
I'm Mary Ann Glazebrook, and I'm playing Catherine Blake, Kate, his wife, soulmate, and business partner. slightly younger than William. Also the screaming woman in the courtroom scene.
I am Anthony Green. I am playing Thomas Paine, the global revolutionary and bridge designer, aka the mystery guest and vagrant. Also playing Simon Sutherland, William Reed, and the man in the gallery in the courtroom scenes.
Act 1, Scene 1. Setting. Fall, 1791 in Lambeth, a working craftsman section of London. A combination parlor, workroom, and dining room of William and Catherine Blake is on one side of the stage. On the other side is the judge's high bench from the Old Bailey, with the judge already seated in his robes and wig. Kate is watercoloring a sheet of Blake's Marriage of Heaven and Hell at one end of the dining room table, with a number of other sheets from the same page hung by wire draped across the room to dry. In front of the table are unopened packages of savory pies and bottles sent earlier by Blake's publisher, Joseph Johnson. Will sits by the fireplace, over which hangs his large portrait of Mary in Jerusalem. On his head is the red wool cap of the French Revolution. As the lights lower, the trio Suave il Vento from Mozart's Così fan tutti is heard. Vagrant, dressed in rags, makes his stage entrance on the street in front of the Blake's apartment. He curls around the lamppost, covering himself with a tattered blanket. The spy makes his entrance, leans against the lamppost, and lights his pipe. When he realizes that the vagrant is lying at his feet, he starts kicking him to move on. Mary Wollstonecraft enters as if sleepwalking. Although it is late September, she is wearing a diaphanous Greek goddess gown. She is dramatically over-made up and carrying an envelope. As Mary approaches Blake's door, she is stopped by the spy.
Oi! Dolly! Oi, I'm talking at you! What does he want for it?
Mary freezes, standing still as a statue.
Playing dumb, are you? Maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe you're really a foreign lady what lost her way to the prince's grand ball. I need to sniff out what she is.
He starts smelling her from head to toe. While he's doing this, the vagrant takes out his knife, pretends to stab him in the back, but instead cuts the strings of his money pouch and begins to slip away with it.
Nip, you smells like a tart and looks like a tart, so a tart you must be. How much for the old back and forth?
Mary is still silent.
Maybe the size of me purse will unlock your lips. Oh, bloody hell!
The spy reaches for his money bag and finds it missing. The vagrant stands within view and taunts the spy with the purse. The vagrant plays keep away with the spy in comic chase until he runs off with the spy following him. As they run off, Mary wakens from her trance and approaches Blake's door, but instead of knocking, she hides in the shrubbery, occasionally peeking in the window. Lights come up in the apartment. A spotlight shines on Will as he reads aloud from his notebook.
When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Darcy, who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight, that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river, and shine in the sun. Then, naked and white, all in their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke. And we rose in the dark. And we got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm.
The last line is the cue for the 3 sharp raps of the judge's gavel as the lighting shifts to the courtroom section of the set.
Hey, yay, this court is now in session at Old Bailey Hall on this 29th day of September 1791, the 30th year of the reign of His Royal Majesty, King George III. The Honourable Judge Justice presiding.
Dispense with the formalities, bailiff. Get on with it.
Case number 316, Ann Brooks, age 17, profession unknown, has been indicted for stealing on the 6th day of September a watch, value £2, the goods of George Wetton from his person.
Go on, Mr. Wetton. Tell us your story.
I'm a baker. I live with my father in Devonshire Street, Mill End. I'm 19 years of age. I met the prisoner, who was alone, about 6:30 on the evening of the 3rd of September, in Whitechapel. I was quite sober. She asked me to go down Wentworth Street with her. I went to a house on Woodgate Court, into the room on the left hand, up one pair of stairs. We were there alone. I had 6 pence in my pocket, and that I gave her, and a few halfpence to get a candle. Took my breeches off and folded them up carefully, and put them on a chair. I am certain my watch was then in the fob, because I tucked the ribbon of it down. I was not in the room above 5 minutes when another girl came in and held me while the prisoner took my breeches out of the room. I got down as soon as I could and got a hold of the tail of my breeches. The prisoner swore at me like a trooper and hit me over the head. I got the breeches, but the watch was gone. I'm quite certain of the person. She was taken into custody 2 days afterwards by my describing her person to an officer.
Is the officer in the court?
Hey, I be that officer, Your Honor. Moses Fortune by name. The prosecutor here came to me on this night. He appeared perfectly sober. I talked with him for 10 minutes. He described the 2 girls to me, and having some slight knowledge of such girls, I took them 2 days afterwards in Whitechapel. I discovered no watch where they was at the time.
Young man, I hope you learned a valuable lesson about whores. It cost you only a watch now this time, didn't it? And girl, have you anything to say before I pass sentence?
Can't even remember who he was. I know I ain't guilty of nicking no one's watch.
Well, I believe you are. And if not, surely of other pernicious acts that have yet to be uncovered. The sentence of this court is guilty as charged. The punishment is transportation for life to labor at the farm colony in the Leeward Islands.
They're making black slaves out of
Order
us.
in the court! Hurry up with the next case.
Case number 317 is called to the docket. 1, Benjamin Brown, age 10, profession chimney sweep, has been indicted for feloniously stealing on the 4th of August 1 silk handkerchief, value 10 shillings, the property of Thomas Monkhouse, gentleman.
Is the defendant in the court? I don't see him in the dock. Oh, there he is. Bailiff, would you get him a box or something to stand up? Call the first witness.
Calling Thomas Monkhouse, please approach the bench and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I so swear.
Mr. Monkhouse, would you tell the court what the defendant did to you?
Coming along up a Marylebone Street hill, the prisoner at the bar over there took a handkerchief out of my pocket. It was so dexterously done I did not immediately miss it, until Mr. Sutherland called me back, and he had had the boy by the scruff of the neck. I turned round and saw my handkerchief in his hand. The boy, I think, was taken to a Guildhall prison. The constable took possession of the handkerchief, which is on the table over there.
Bailiff, would you hold up the handkerchief so that we can all see it? Is this Mr. Sutherland in the court?
I am, Your Honor.
Can you substantiate Mr. Monkhouse's account of the events?
I can. I'm a grocer what resides on Fish Street Hill. My shop faces up a Marylebone. Not being very busy, I was looking out and observed Mr. Monkhouse go by, and the prisoners followed him rather suspicious-like. So I watched him smartly, and I saw the boy take the handkerchief very deliberately out of his pocket and in a very complete way and put it under his own sooty shirt. I took hold of the boy and called Mr. Monkhouse back, although I didn't know his name then, and asked him if he had lost a handkerchief. He felt in his pockets and said, yes, for I had a handkerchief about a minute or two ago, and now I have none.
And is that self-same handkerchief here produced?
It is, my lord.
And to the prisoner in the dock, what say you to these charges?
Sir, no, swear him in.
Of course.
Do you, Benjamin Brown, swear to tell the truth, so help you God?
Right.
You need to say, I do so swear to tell the truth.
Right. I do so swear to tell the truth.
Do you know what will become of you, Benjamin, if you tell an untruth?
Condemned to everlasting fire and damnation, they tell us. Kind of like the prison cell you put us in.
Enough insolence. You've heard what these men have told the court about what you did. Why shouldn't we find you guilty of the crime of theft?
Because they didn't tell you what really happened. I was coming up Fish Street here about 1 o'clock, just as a gentleman says, and I saw a handkerchief laying under a cart, and I went and picked it up like anyone else would have. And he came up, laid hold of me, and said I took it out of that other gentleman's pocket. But I hadn't. It was under the cart, like I said.
And is your father here in court today?
Well, no, sir, he ain't. Is yours?
That's quite enough. It's obvious the boy is lying, and the sentence of this court is guilty as charged.
Your Honour, now that the boy has been convicted, it would be proper to inform you that this boy here has a brother who is bound over for transport to the prison farms in Australia. I heard the constables are also watching an older sister who they suspect aided him in robbing that Newport alley house of £200.
It seems we need to send the family a sterner warning. Benjamin Brown, your punishment for the felonious crime you're found guilty of is to within the fortnight hang by your neck until dead.
Sweet Jesus.
The boy faints and hits the floor.
Child killer!
Hey, let's get that boy out of here and quiet the damn gallery. Quiet, I say! Or back into the streets with the lot of you.
Lights fade.
Voices of children are heard on the green,
The sow came in with the saddle,
and laughing is heard on the hill.
and the little big rocks the crater.
My heart is at rest within my breast, and everything else is still. The little ones leapt and shouted and laughed, and all the hills echo it.
The dish jumped over the table.
She illustrates this by making an arc with her brush in the air in a childlike manner, splattering the water on the table itself, carefully away from the sheet that she is working on. She wets her brush from colored water in a beaker that is identical to the one that will soon arrive from the apothecary, containing the etching acid.
To see, what? Well, how does it go?
See the brass pot, swallow the lid.
Swallow the ladle, the old pup behind the door, called the Cataract Blackmore. Well, are you weeping?
The angels have all left the trees. Look out of the window, don't you see, Kate? Kate, do you pity me?
Yes, I do.
And I love you.
Kate returns to her watercolor. Fanny enters, tiptoeing through the front door and trying not to be seen with a basket full of vegetables.
Fanny, I really needed you today of all days to get ready for Mr. Johnson's tea. Just look at everything that he has sent over. Where were you?
Oh, I was to the barbers on the circus to get me teeth pulled. The broke off one in back, yes. Then I walked to the market, then all the way to the Bailey to keep me thinking off the pain. Nothing helped, so I went up to the court gallery. There was this one dirty little lad, maybe 9 or 10 years old, who could barely see over the dark. Got the hanging sentence he did, just for nicking a handkerchief. Oh, it was a beauty, it was, with a big yellow flower on it. But the best part, oh,
Fanny, what is the rest of the story?
right. See,
there was this riot.
A delivery man with a small package wrapped in brown paper knocks at the front door. Mary sees him coming and hides deeper in the shrubbery. He knocks.
Fanny, would you mind seeing who that is?
Oh, I can't see no one, Mum.
That's because you have to open it first. Never mind. How may we help you?
This is for Mr. William Blake himself.
I'm his wife. I'll make sure he gets it.
God, the chemist says I need to give it only to him. He says if any of it spills, it'll eat your skin and bones.
Mr. Blake is sitting right over there. Come in if you want and hand it to him yourself.
That's good enough for me. Yeah, Mum, I'll put it down right on this here table for you. Mum, one more thing. The chemist says I was to bring him back a shilling. 10 without fail.
Will, would you pay the man?
Blake rips the page out of his notebook.
Is that anything? It's my best drawing of the man climbing the ladder to reach the moon.
Afraid not. Nothing to me.
Here's a crown. Keep the difference for your trouble.
Oh, much appreciated, Mum.
The delivery man exits.
The money's a-going, Mr. Blake. Are you only going to be happy when we don't have a single penny in the house?
Act 1, Scene 3. The night watchman lights the gas street lamp. Joseph Johnson approaches Blake's front door, dragging a bag like Father Christmas. Because of the lit street lamp, he spots Mary Wollstonecraft still spying through the window.
Mary, I was so worried about you. I'm glad you received my message.
Johnson, you bastard. I'd rather be a common slut than the wife of any man I did not love and respect. The very effrontery of the man to presume such an intimacy with my person. What could have possibly given him such a notion, you may ask? But you already know the answer. How could you? My only friend, the only person that I trust in this world, do something so dastardly. Ugh. Maybe I'm the ungrateful one. I am embarrassed to think of all my childish complaints when you provide me with such important employment. My life is such a joke. I spent last night switching between laughing and crying. When I received your invitation, I decided to waylay you. Did you bring that German grammar?
What grammar? Well, never mind that. My dearest Mary, please accept my sincere apologies. My objective is only to ensure your well-being long after I'm gone.
After 3 years of working every day, side by side, you don't know me at all, do you? I knew I would be too agitated to explain myself clearly when we met. So I wrote it all out this morning in a letter addressed to Lowry. Can I read it to you now without any interruptions?
Of course, Mary.
Mr. Lowry, it is inexpressibly disagreeable to me to be obliged to enter again on a subject that has already raised a tumult of indignant emotions in my bosom, which I was laboring to suppress when I received your letter. I shall now condescend to answer your epistle, but let me first tell you that in my unprotected situation, I make a point of never forgiving a deliberate insult. And in that light, I consider your late officious conduct.
How can you consider a proposal of honourable marriage officious conduct?
I need no interrogator.
My apologies.
I shall read on. It is not according to my nature to mince matters. I will tell you in plain terms what I think. I have ever considered you merely a civil acquaintance. How could you be so rude as to presume an intimacy more than that? If my friend, Mr. Johnson, had made such a proposal, I should have been severely hurt, have thought him unkind and unfeeling, but not impertinent. In as few words as possible, what I cannot tolerate is the bare supposition that I could, for a moment, think of prostituting my person for a maintenance. For in that point of view does such a marriage appear to me. An apology is not necessary, if you are inclined to make one, nor any further expostulations. I again repeat, I cannot overlook an affront. Few indeed have sufficient delicacy to respect poverty, even when it gives luster to a character. And I can tell you quite openly, sir, I am poor, but can live infinitely better without your benevolent exertions. Signed, Mary W.
I never imagined that my good intentions would cause you such distress.
Well, they have. Independence is the grandest blessing of life. It is the last thing that I shall ever sacrifice, though I had to live on a barren heath to preserve it.
I shall be your guarantor that that will never be necessary.
Oh, and one more thing. I need for you to deliver this letter personally to Lowry and tell him to his face that if he ever, and he and I should ever meet, that I shall either leave the room instantly or else pull him out by the nose.
I shall do it.
Well, now that our storm has passed, let there always be honesty and harmony between us.
Except for this FUSELI affair and what it is doing to you. Quick, hide. Here they come.
Act 1, Scene 4. Henry Fuseli and his wife make their grand entrance. He is layered in a colorful gentleman's lacy finery like a spot-frosted cake, and is carrying a stage bottom's ass's head. Fuseli and Sophia both have on powdered wigs, hers as tall as a rifle. Fuseli opens the door without knocking and pounds his cane on the stage 3 times.
All rise and make way for the fairy queen, Titania, and the fairyland paramour, the royal heiress. Bottom is my name.
Oh, never seen a real fairy before. No, not a queen either.
Attempting a deep bow, Fanny goes to her knees and requires Kate's help in getting back up. Sophia struggles to get through the doorway with her enormous wig on.
Are we the first to arrive? What a wasted entrance. Like, who's our mystery guest? And that painting over the fireplace is new? What is that?
The Blessed Virgin.
Really? It is sacrilegious at best, and a little hideous otherwise.
The Virgin Mary herself told me it was very fine. What say you to that?
Find nothing. Other than her divine ladyship obviously does not possess immaculate perception.
Fuseli is my only passion and hope for joy in this life. I have never known another man who possessed more grandeur of soul, a quicker comprehension, or livelier symphony than he. I always catch something from the rich torrent of his conversation worth treasuring.
Mary, your reason has become enslaved by your passion for that pompous little man. And there is that one other small impediment. He is married.
If I thought my passion criminal, I would conquer it or die in the attempt. Rather, I believe it is divinely directed.
How could that possibly be?
Remember last week when you forced me to finish Milton's divorce tracts, galleys?
Yes. And?
And, while correcting them, I came across this. The apt and cheerful conversation of man with woman is the chief and noblest purpose of marriage. Where loving conversation cannot be, there can be left of wedlock nothing but the empty husk. After much thought, I truly believe that God meant for me to read that passage exactly when I did.
That would only be logical if I myself were God. And then in this fairy tale of your contriving, you become the grain and Sophia is the husk. I certainly concur with the second part of your premise, but do you believe that God's destiny for you is to fatten Henry's already distended vanity?
He's a great man.
You could be the greater woman, but he is no longer any concern of mine. You, I shall always care about. How does he treat you?
The last time we were together, he simply left the room without a word, as if I were a chair. But that was really my fault. His presence sometimes strikes me dumb, like in the poem. If I meet you suddenly, I cannot speak. My tongue is broken. A thin flame runs under my skin. Seeing nothing, hearing only my own ears drumming, I drip with sweat. Trembling shakes my body and I turn paler than dry grass. At such times, death isn't far from me. That is me. I am Sappho.
I feel a dagger in my stomach too whenever I see him. But what's the resolution? Sappho doesn't give any.
But I thought I told you Milton
Oh,
does.
you're talking like a sphinx now. Fuseli's drunk so much of Sophia's blood that she'll never leave him.
Extend Milton's argument, and it makes irrefragable sense. She copulates with his baser instincts, and I will couple with his mind. Ergo, like the Trinity, I shall complete him by marrying them both.
So, Sir Joshua cuts my canvas with his knife and screams, "These are mere toys! Where is generalized truth?"
That's what idiots know.
Which is as much to say that the great Sir Joshua Reynolds is an idiot. My dear boy, I can see why they gave you the boot.
My enthusiasms were derided as childish glee.
I had heard that you told Sir Joshua to his face that you despised his oils.
A lie. I simply stated I preferred the fresco style.
Which, ipso facto, meant you hated his style. You never understood the Academy's high purposes, to manufacture the kind of art worthy of a great empire like Greece's, like Rome.
Artists imagine empires, not the other way around. We imagined those worlds long before the politicians confiscated them for their own pleasures.
Well, I agree with you there. My pleasurable imaginings are being confiscated by constables at print shops across the city, even as we speak. And most of those originated as royal commissions. Can you smell what is in Bottom's ass's head?
Fuseli holds the opening of the ass's head under Blake's nose.
All too well.
That's the perfume that the Duke of Clarence was wearing tonight. After Sophia and I arrived, he was so taken with our costumes that he insisted that he and his companion take over our parts in the tableau vivant. In compensation, Reynolds asked me to render it for a large painting for the Academy. You would have loved it, Bill. An heir to the throne on all fours with my head on his shoulders, ridden hard across the marble floor by Dorothy Jordan, the queen whore of Covent Gardens. It surely excited me, didn't it, Sophia? Oh, yes.
Honest the rock you was.
Oh, I wish I could have seen it.
And so you shall.
Fuseli impulsively puts on the head and very awkwardly gets down on his hands and knees.
Come, my Titania, your steed awaits.
More donkey, rather.
Are you sure you're up for it?
Sophia climbs on his back, holding her wig precariously on the top of her head. Fuseli collapses and doesn't move. Sophia's wig falls off and she's sprawled, disheveled on the floor. Mary and Johnson rush in. Joseph removes the ass's head from Fuseli, which he hands to Mary, who passes it on back to Kate.
Henry, can you hear me? Are you dead?
What a stupid question. Although I did think I'd been I'd have to be dead before I'd see you again, my old bugger in hell.
You're an oafish toad.
I see my Helena has finally arrived way too late for her cue. Way too late for her cue, I might add. Mary, will you see that Madame Fuseli is all right?
You can put yourself back together in our bedroom, love. Come on now, it might take all of us.
All the women exit.
A belated welcome to our humble home, Joseph. You must excuse me, gentlemen. I must a note to make.
Returns to his chair by the fire.
Joseph, I'm simply dying to know the identity of our mystery guest.
In the fullness of time, I have a more important matter to settle with you. Why do you treat Mary so badly? Have you no shame?
You are a genuinely sweet man, Joseph, and so English. Wie ein sentimental Swiss answer you. Schem ist für Kinder. Let me ask you this. Is the cat ever ashamed when he toys with the mouse that it will eat? I think not.
Henry, are we talking about mice or our beloved Mary?
Is that Mary you speak of your assistant, your governess, or your child?
Just stop what you're doing.
Stop ignoring her, do you mean? There is right now a small stack of her letters on the stand near the door, untouched, except by Sophia. She had so much trouble with the handwriting on one that I had to read it to her. What a cyclone it has stirred. I still bear the scratches where a year on my neck. Look.
Have you seen a surgeon? They look inflamed.
Mary stalks my every step. You should pity me, not her.
Johnson pulls back somewhat embarrassed when Mary and the others return without Sophia's wig.
Gather around, everyone. Since Mary did not appear at the ball tonight, Sir Joshua cut our Midsummer Night's Dream scene. The Duke stole our bottom, and Titania's spots in the tableau, as I was telling the others. And some silly boy garbled Puck's lines so badly that no one knew what was going on. I would have made an amazing Puck.
I can well imagine you flitting about the hall like a rolling pumpkin.
That hurt. Was that a poke at my corpulence?
No, this is a poke at your corpulence.
It did hurt.
Stop stuffing yourself.
It seems that fate decreed that I would be run to ground at the Blakes by my dear little hyena. Pardonnez-moi. I meant to say Helena. Let's take full advantage of Mary's presence now and play out our scene while we wait for Johnson's mystery guest to appear. Ladies and gentlemen, take your seats. The bard awaits our bidding. Who converses with Shakespeare is not an actor. He is a god in my eyes.
Mary, he's stealing from your friend Sappho this time.
Our scene is between Mary as Helena and I as Demetrius, her lover. But not he, hers, or her, his. I still have difficulty with your prepositions and your pronouns. Anyway, you'll see what I mean.
Fuseli takes out a little book from his vest and displays it for the guests.
Note the fine printing by Monsieur J. Johnson and Company, which shall serve as my prompt copy. Enter Demetrius, Helena following him. I love thee not, therefore pursue me not. Where is Lysander and fair Hermia? Get thee gone and follow me no more.
You draw me, you hard-hearted lodestone. I'm over here.
There you are. Yes.
You draw me, you hard-hearted lodestone, but yet you draw not iron, for my heart is true as steel. Leave your power to draw, and I shall have no power to follow you.
Do I entice you? Do I speak you fair? Or rather, do I not in plainest truth tell you I do not, nor I cannot love you?
And even for that do I love you the more. I am your spaniel, and Demetrius, the more you beat me, I will fawn on you. Use me but as your spaniel. Spurn me, strike me, neglect me, lose me. Only give me leave, unworthy as I am, to follow you. What worser place can I beg in your love, and yet a place of high respect with me, than to be used as you use your dog?
I am sick when I do not look on thee.
And I am sick when I look not on you.
I'll run from thee and hide me in the brakes, and leave thee to the mercy of wild beasts. Let me go! Or if thou follow me, do not believe, but I shall do thee mischief in the wood.
Aye, in the temple, in the town, in the fields, you do me mischief. Fie, Demetrius, your wrongs do set a scandal on my sex. We cannot fight for love as men may do. We should be wooed, and we're not made to woo.
Exit Demetrius.
I'll follow thee, and make a heaven of hell, to die upon the hand I loved so well.
Mary, in real tears, rushes off the stage.
Exit Helena. Where has Mary evaporated to now? I love this scene. What do you think, Johnson? I was rather good, wasn't I?
I think we should be much kinder to Mary. Can't you see how tortured she is?
She? Haven't I just told you how she aggravates me? It's the same with all women. They suck me dry. Notice how thin and ghostly pale I've become. Like Orpheus hunted by the Bacchae.
Why do you lead her on?
When I first met her at your shop, she was in the coarse habit of a hermit. Black worsted stockings, wearing a beaver hat with her hair lank on top of her shoulders. When Sophie and I first visited her little room, she served such a horrible wine in unmatched teacups.
Then why is she always following you around?
You heard Shakespeare. Is it the magnet's fault that the iron flies to it? But did you see tonight how magnificent she has become?
She is unrecognizable. She's useless at the shop, staring blankly, spilling ink. She's gone for days at a time. I had to goad her every day just to finish the Vindication, which has now made her so famous.
And I wanted to recant it entirely. I take it as a personal affront for her to attack my patrons. How ridiculous she makes me and herself. The coquetting of a strident female philosopher can never prove agreeable.
But is it my turn?
Mary re-enters from the bedroom.
Mary, you look much restored.
Henry and Sophia, please forgive me for having disturbed the quiet tenor of your lives.
Just a modicum of peace and quiet is all I desire and require.
I have pondered and believe I have arrived at a resolution that will accomplish much more than that. Since Mrs. Fuseli has the right to the physical person of her husband, I claim only a unification with that terra incognito of his mind. It is only reasonable, then, that I become your inmate, residing with you as a family. And as I want to be above reproach or deceit, Sophia, this marriage proposal arises from the sincere affection which I have for your husband, for I find I cannot live without the satisfaction of seeing and conversing with him daily. You may do with me as you wish. Treat me as your scullery servant, or employ me as the governess of any children that you might have.
What? What a blatant nightmare! You don't visit my house, you're haunted. Someone is always bumping into you, and a vase gets broken. There are whole handfuls of salt in the soup. Oh, the curtains. Curtains, Henry, I can't breathe. Oh, I can't breathe.
Sophia melodramatically staggers out the front door.
Henry, please let me love you.
I can no longer stay.
Fuseli pauses for a moment and then goes out the front door without a backward glance.
Thy will be done.
Mary drinks from the beaker containing the colored water that Kate was using, rather than the clear one containing the acid.
Mary, don't drink that. Oh my God.
Blackout.
Guys, we're taking a quick 10-minute intermission. So, Act 2. Let's read.
Act 2, Scene 1. In the dim light, Mary is seen lying on an old settee with Kate, putting compresses on her forehead. Fanny is sitting on a three-legged stool facing them, chattering away. Blake is across the room, looking up occasionally, writing and sketching in his notebook. The scene is interrupted by the loud pounding of the judge's gavel as lights come up on the courtroom.
Order in the court, and you in the gallery. If there's another outburst like the last one, I'll put you all in jail.
The hell with you, Will! There's too many of us!
Officers, remove that man. And now, bailiff. Quiet! Bailiff, will you call the next case?
Case number 318 is called to the docket. One William Reed, age 33. Mr. Reed has been indicted for feloniously stealing on the 19th of July this year 6-pound weight of white pewter, valued £10 sterling. The goods of his master, Cornelius Swift. The first witness is Thomas Cox. Do you, Thomas Cox, swear to tell the truth, so help you God?
I do so swear.
Relate to the court what occurred on the 19th of July pursuant to the accused.
I've been apprenticed to Mr. Swift, the pewterer on Shoe Lane. On that particular Friday, I had occasion to go out of the shop. I seen Thomas was off his stool, which he had no business to be. I went where his coat is usually hung up to see if he was still there. And saw his coat was bulging out most strangely, which caused a suspicion in my mind. My master being out, I went and fetched Singleton, the constable, straight away and pointed out the coat to him, where he found pewter in every one of the pockets. The constable asked me where Mr. Reed was, and I searched down to the kitchen. He was talking with me mistress and Mr. Bland from across the way.
What regular business had Mr. Reed to do on that stool?
He was the journeyman, polishing pots for sale.
Where were you to be when he was polishing the pots?
Tending the fires in the room below.
Bailiff, call the next witness.
Call in Constable Singleton. Do you swear to tell the truth, as God is your witness?
I swear.
And Singleton, what can you add to Mr. Cox's testimony?
As you know, Your Honour, I am a constable at St. Andrews. I was sent to investigate what Mr. Cox there said. I live directly opposite the shop. He showed me where Mr. Reed's coat is hanging, and I pulled all that pewter on the table over there out of his different pockets. When Mr. Cox led me to where the defendant was, he said he was very sorry for what he had done. I asked him if ever he had done the like before. He said he never had, but that him and his wife and young ones being out on the street for not paying his rents on account of a sick one. That's when he died. Well, he died, yes, he did.
That's right enough.
Sick one that died.
Is Master Cornelius Swift in the courtroom today?
I am, Your Honor.
Master Swift, is that your property lying on the table?
There is my mark on the bottom of each piece. But I can't believe that Mr. Reed would steal it.
And why is that?
Because William has been with me since he was a boy. It must have almost been 20 years. And nothing has ever gone missing from the shop in all that time.
You're dismissed. Does the prisoner have anything to say in his own defense?
I did not put them things in my pockets. Master Swift has always treated me right. I've been locked up in jail for more than 2 months with no way to provide for my wife and children. And I never said them things to the constable, but swore my innocence from the first. I've seen him and Cox drinking together at a time at the Hairy Owl. Cox has often played tricks with me.
This is much more serious than a trick, Mr. Reed. Why would Mr. Cox do such a thing?
It's because he wants it to get as far. It's because he wants to get as far away from that infernal furnace as he can and take my job.
Mr. Cox, the accused here says you often played tricks on him. You're still under oath. Did you put that pewter into his pockets?
I swear before Almighty God I did not, sir.
And Constable Singleton, did the accused indeed confess his guilt to you exactly in the manner that you testified to?
Right, he did, every last word of it.
If there are no other witness, I am ready to pass judgment. Are there any more? Going once, going twice.
No, Your Honor, that's the lot of them.
Then, Mr. William Reed, I find you guilty of felonious theft based on your prior confession of the crime to the constable, and your punishment is to be transported to the prison farms at Botany Bay for no fewer than 14 years servitude.
It's a death sentence for us all!
They start throwing vegetables at the judge in time with each shouting of the word revolution. The lights come up on Blake's parlor.
And the man's wife screams like a banshee. It's a death sentence for us all. And all their little ones call out, "We'll be dead! We'll be dead! We'll be dead!" Just like that. I couldn't understand why they were so upset. Where is this Botany Bay? Someone told me it was just west of Brighton. Where she said they're building a fancy palace to rival Versailles.
Your source was partially correct, Fanny. Botany Bay is indeed west of Brighton, about 10,000 miles west in our Australian colony.
Ooh, that explains why the folks in the gallery starts throwing whatever we brought at the judge. I threw a bunch of carrots myself. Then the other bailiffs rush in. I try to grab whatever vegetables I can to put back in my sack. The crowd carries me out the door. When we're outside, one of the men digs up this cobblestone from the road and hurls it at the bailey. He just bounced off the brick wall. He then shimmies up a lamppost and starts yelling at the crowd something like, "They're going to hang every one of us, or send us off like black slaves to work for nothing on their farms. Let's kill as many of them as we can before they get us." Well, that frightened me a bit.
That's horrible.
It did do one good thing, though.
What's that?
I had forgot my tooth was out.
I think you're upsetting Mary too much with your story. Fanny, why don't you finish setting places for our tea? And Mary, try to sit up. Joseph said he'll be doing as soon as he tells Henry that you are all right.
I'm sure that news will disappoint him.
Oh, don't suffer yourself so, lovey. Men just wants a wonk and a wank. The devil made him and the devil can have him.
Well, that's certainly not true, Mr. Johnson or Mr. Blake. Speak up, Will. Defend your sex. But Fanny, please, go on with your story.
Oh, now, where was I?
Cobblestones.
Right. After the man threw the cobblestone, others started picking up smaller stones and aiming them more carefully at the windows. I had a couple crash, but then the soldiers came. Then some of the women's friends led her and the children quickly away towards her home, I imagined. A few of us tagged along. When we arrived, everything that she owned was being brought out by the constables and tossed onto the street. Chairs, spoons, tiny shoes. Then a shameful thing happened. We landed on it like a flock of crows, grabbing and pecking at each other until the street was picked bare. I got this comb here.
Fanny takes the comb out of her apron pocket and places it on the sideboard to distance herself from it.
What happened to the woman?
The last I seen of her, she was kneeling in the alley with her children, kind of praying. I had to get back to help out Mrs. Blake.
Well, do you know where we can find them?
Oh, I can take you to the alley, but I doubt they're still there.
They can live with me. We can't sit idly by letting the courts exterminate us one by one. God created us as human as they, maybe more so.
Please, missus, don't get rid of the courts and the gallows. Where would we poor folks go for a lark and a spa?
Don't fret, Fanny. That'll never happen.
It's not the court's fault for what happened to that woman. Blame marriage. Get rid of that. It's dirty little consequences and you'll fix nearly all the women's troubles. As a young slavey, I vowed never to make that mistake and have been able to take care of myself and many others like the Blakes very nicely ever since.
But surely you will agree that Will and Kate's marriage is a shining rebuttal to what you are saying.
What does my shining butthole have to
Mary, care to hear a sonnet I just composed? My dedication is to Mary, the most scandalous virgin in Albion. Some said she was proud, some called her a whore,
Will?
and some, when she passed, just shut the door. A damp cold came over her, her blushes all fled. Her lilies and roses are blighted and shed. Oh, why was I born with a different face? Why was I not born like the rest of the race? When I look, each one starts. When I speak, I offend. Then I'm silent and passive and lose every friend. Why did heaven adorn me with bountiful hand, and then set me down in such an envious land? I will humble my beauty. I will not dress fine. I will keep from the ball, and my eyes shall not shine. And if any girl's lover forsakes her for me, I'll refuse him my hand, and from envy thus be free.
Will, that's terrible.
You're right, the lines are all jangled, muddled.
I love it. William, you and I are truly a different genus. We should only breed with our own kind.
Oh, my dead body. Leave my husband be.
Dear Kate, I was speaking metaphorically.
Then you'll have to metaphoricate on my dead body.
Mary, Catherine's a little sensitive about this subject.
Sensitive my ass. Last year, Will came to his barren wife with an inspired solution. Its only requirement was the divine intervention of the human body of our servant girl, Molly.
As God is my witness.
Don't you dare use God as your pimp, Mr. Blake. My perfect husband over there tried to convince me that our path lay in the prophecy of the Bible. He almost had me convinced by that Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar story, but Will made the mistake of teaching me how to read. I read the rest of the story that Will forgot to mention. Sarah, although tricked at first, becomes furious and throws her servant Hagar and her little bastard out into the desert. Abraham then gets his rightful heir and the Jewish tribes get begot. But the story doesn't end there. This Ishmael fathers the Arab tribes, and the two are still at war to this day, all because Abraham thought he was smarter than God.
What did you do?
Like Sarah threw Molly out on her ear. Joseph sent Fanny over here when he saw that we needed help. You haven't asked Fanny to bear any children yet, have you, Will?
Kate, you do know that that was not what I was proposing to Henry and Sophia. Just the reverse, really. I will make no sexual demands on him. Being near him is all the pleasure in this life that I require. I'd be their amanuensis.
What's it?
I'm sorry, it's Latin, meaning someone within a hand's reach to provide personal services for his master. In Rome, they were the most trusted of slaves. Many more Romans were poisoned by their wives than by their
I know Henry will be tickled to have as many people within hand's reach as he can get.
There is the background sound of rain from here and until the end of the play. There's a knocking at the door.
Fanny, will you go to the door and open it? This time?
Spare a half penny for a starving man.
Oh, shoo, you smelly old thing.
I mean no harm It's a hard rain. If I was a stray dog, you'd take me in.
Stop it, Fanny. Put the broom down and invite him in. We've got plenty.
Kate takes an apple and ripping off the end of a loaf of bread on the sideboard, she gives them to Payne.
Come dry yourself by the fire a bit.
Blake looks up from his notebook and intently studies Payne's face. The actor playing Payne should wear a prosthetic nose, similar to Payne's portrait at this time.
You have a very interesting face. Mind if I sketch you?
You an artist?
I apprenticed as an engraver, but I discovered early on that only I could draw what I imagined.
Posing is the least I could do to repay your hospitality.
You know who you look like?
No, who?
No offense, but your face looks exactly like a caricature of Thomas Paine.
You're not the first one to tell me that, but I do take offense.
Why is that?
I take offense because it is the face of Thomas Paine. I am honored to meet you, Mr. Blake.
Kate, Mary, I believe our guest has arrived. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Thomas Paine.
You're the one that song's about.
What song is that?
Oh, God save great Thomas Paine, his rights of man explain to every soul. He makes the blind to see what dupes and slaves they be, and points out liberty from pole to pole. Thousands cry church and king that well deserve to
Stop! You'll get me hanged.
Fanny, get the wash-up bowl and some soap. And bolt that door.
And Mary, are you the Mary?
Which Mary is that?
The first vindicator of the rights of man in England, Mary.
Guilty as charged.
You're the chief reason why I came back to London tonight.
Me? I'm nobody.
Through this scene, Fanny brings a wash bowl and Kate brings a change of clothes. And Payne is cleaned up and changes costume right on the stage, stripping down all the way to his underwear while he is talking.
As you can see, I'm nobody too.
Oh, didn't you hear? You're the people's king.
I'm the people's ferret. I learned long ago how to make such a racket in castle walls that none of them could get any sleep.
When I was a little girl, my brother and I spent most of the day with glasses stuck to our ears, following the scratchings within our walls. When the sound stopped, my brother took an axe and bashed in the plaster, lathe and all, and there was this huge, hissing rat. And beneath her body were these tiny pink faces, calm and secure. For some strange reason, I had a rush of feeling that I wanted to change places with them. When my brother swung his axe again, I screamed so hard, I think I passed out. I've never felt safe since.
Payne picks up the ass's head and studies Wollstonecraft's theatrically made-up face, now streaked.
What amusement did I miss?
Me making a complete fool of myself?
I try to do that every day of my life, and my friends inform me I often succeed.
But you still haven't explained why you wanted to meet me.
It's a little convoluted, but let me try. Once the protection of the individual rights was sewn onto the American Constitution, I thought my work on the Revolution was over. And I then returned to my English homeland for one purpose, and one purpose only, and that was to gain a royal patent for my cast iron bridge design and begin building them wherever I could.
A bridge?
A bridge. What value is a marketplace on the other side of a wide river if you can't get your cart full of potatoes to it? Changing laws doesn't materially change people's lives one iota. But bridges certainly can.
The Romans built all those walls, but they should have built bridges instead. Is that it?
The free exchange of goods is the real key to the poor raising themselves out of poverty and the guarantor of peace and mutual prosperity between nations. Just imagine what an actual bridge over the English Channel connecting England with France could do to change the world. It's that simple.
Could it be that simple?
When the chief end of government is to build bridges rather than defending the wealth of the wealthiest, this is more possible. It is inevitable.
I'll play your simple game. Let me make a simple proposal. Maybe all that we need to do to bring about the equality of black slaves with their masters, the poor with the rich, the young with the old, and women with their husbands, is simply to educate them equally.
That is exactly what they're trying to do in Paris, even as we speak.
But I've been a little distracted lately. What is happening?
This month, the Assembly has emancipated all of the Negro slaves in French territories around the world and guaranteed them the full rights of citizenship.
To both men and women?
Is that a serious question? How could they enfranchise slave women and when not even the Queen of France has the right to vote? And on the second matter, Talleyrand has proposed universal education for all children, regardless of means.
Boys and girls alike.
Not exactly. Talleyrand's argument is that no girl needs to be educated beyond the 8th grade and only needs those skills which please men, are useful to men, and make men's lives easy and agreeable. I believe those are his words.
This is no more enlightened than Rousseau's "the female is the sex that ought to obey." Who do they imagine are the first teachers of these newly liberated sons? A cow? A sheep? No, a woman. How quickly you all forget that it was the poor women of Paris who had the courage to lead the attack on the army of Versailles. Would you convey my strenuous objections to your friend Talleyrand when you see him?
I could never articulate them as persuasively as you just have. Why don't you address him directly?
You still haven't answered my question about why you wanted to meet me.
You breathed life back into me. When I read your counterattack on Burke, I couldn't stand by and leave you the lone target in the barricades.
I see. And now that you're in their gun sights as well, you wanted to thank me in person?
For setting me on fire again, yes. I thank you. Lafayette invited me to come to Paris and accept a seat on the new National Assembly. My imminent departure compelled me to have Johnson arrange our meeting here tonight.
I don't know what to say.
Say you'll come with me to France. With me to help liberate all the women and girls there. And say we'll first wash that rouge off your face.
Payne beckons to Fanny to bring back the wash bowl, and he gently washes the streaked makeup off Mary's face.
And say you'll get out of that absurd Greek goddess costume. Kate, will you help her?
Kate and Mary exit. Payne walks over to examine the pages hanging to dry from the wire.
These pages are beautiful. The marriage of heaven and hell. That's a little disturbing. What are these?
Our contribution to the revolution. This book will redeem the world.
I've never seen anything like this. What is your method?
I chose corrosive acids, which above the earth carry severe warnings, but in hell are salutary and medicinal. They melt apparent surface away and display the infinite hid beneath them.
Oh, I see. I don't want to sound like an old printer, but by engraving the body copy rather than using type, you make it rather difficult to read.
Leave out that single line there, and you leave out life itself. Chaos just spills back in.
I see. Chaos, you say. And by hand coloring each page, you must severely limit the number of copies. How many can you produce like this?
Over 100 a year, depending on our health and all.
I don't want to dampen your spirits, Will, but we printed 100,000 copies of Common Sense in the first 3 months alone and still reached only half the northern colonies before their war's end. By my calculations, it'll take you 1,000 years to reach that number. And if your ambition is...
Let me ask you a question.
Ask me anything.
How many people were there in the Roman Empire? At its height, let's say.
I don't know. Surely many millions.
And how important would you say Jerusalem was to that empire?
To a lion, maybe.
And how dangerous to the powers that ruled that insignificant Jerusalem was a village carpenter, armed only with the sound of his voice.
Well, I'm a plain man. Just say what it is.
That our 100 illuminated copies have 100 times better chance of success than Christ's words blown out by the wind.
You also have another problem.
What is that?
In all of human history, there has been just one real Christian, and the religions killed him.
I guess now it's my turn.
To kill or be him.
I also know one more thing than you do.
And what is that?
Robert told me last night that 200 years from now, I will be read more than anyone else in my generation. I guess that includes you too, Mr. Payne.
Mary enters, dressed very similarly to Payne in men's clothing. She has her hair tied back with a ribbon, similar to his.
What have we here?
I have lately shipwrecked on your shores, my lord. My name is Cesario. I'm at your service.
A marvelous transformation. By the way, Kate, who's Robert?
Will's dead brother. You're both wearing his clothes.
Our short-lived butterfly has become a more durable creature, and more your twin, Thomas, than someone at your service.
Mary, Will has given me an idea. We could gain safe passage to London, from London to Paris, disguised in our present costumes as brothers.
There is fairly loud arguing between Johnson and Fuseli as they return to the Blakes. Mary's name is used a number of times.
Here comes your first test.
Act 2, Scene 4.
Let us in, for Christ's sake, before we drown!
Fanny, let them in.
What took you so long? We're drenched. Oh, I see you were entertaining company. Joseph, I thought you said to be one, Mr. Guest. Not two.
Apparently my guest decided to bring a friend. Henry, I'd like to introduce you to Citizen Thomas Payne.
Scheist! Joseph, have you lost your mind? My life will be ruined in a matter of minutes. They'll hang us all.
Stay calm, my old butterfly. We're safe enough here in Lambeth.
The Duke boasted that his spies know Payne is coming back to London. The Attorney General has already issued the arrest warrant. Don't you see my life is in extreme danger? They'll hang us all.
You must be that famous painter, Henry Fuseli. Joseph has told me how much he admires your work.
He did?
Yes, I did.
Oh, my apologies, Monsieur Payne, for any discourtesy. I rather lost my bearing this evening, bouncing between worlds. I do envy your fractional enclaves.
Well, Cher, you can always come back to us.
You're such a firebrand, Payne, that I expected you'd be much younger. More like your companion.
War exacts its tolls.
And why is no one introducing me to this gorgeous fellow?
His name is Cesario.
Cesario? Oh, we Swiss love the Italians. Their saltiness pairs so well with our chocolate.
And I believe you have met him before.
I cannot believe that is so. I would have never forgotten such a handsome face and figure. I must paint you.
Signore, you make me blush.
You are blushing? Have we indeed met before?
In the temple, in the town, in the fields, you have done me mischief.
I love riddles. In the temple? Are you Jewish? That I would remember. In the fields?
Henry bends Mary's head down to see if the top of her head looks familiar.
That's it! We met in the park Sunday last.
Henry, do you really not recognize the hyena in petticoats who plagued you so these many months and even not an hour ago?
Mary undoes the ribbon that held her hair back to shake it out in Fuseli's face and laughs.
Ah! Voila! He is she.
Mary! Did you all conspire to concoct this rude trick on me?
Oh, yes, Henry. Everything that has happened this evening was about making a fool out of you. Payne came all the way from Manchester, risking imprisonment for the performance.
Tonight makes me think that it was very similar, but not as embarrassing, to what Mrs. Jordan did when she first met the Duke.
Sit down, everybody. I believe Henry's gotten his second wind and there'll be no stopping him. Mary, did you see where they put that bag that I brought with me?
Kate put it by the fireplace.
When the Duke and his masked Hippolyta, thank you, his masked Hippolyta were announced earlier this evening, Lady Facile practically ripped the sleeve from my blouse, dragging me into the corner. Her face was inflating and reddening, so like a balloon, I thought her head would burst.
Henry, more matter with less heart.
Madam, I swear, I used no art at all. All right? The gist was that Lady Facile told me that Hippolyta was none other than that piece of Irish baggage from Covent Gardens, the notorious Mrs., and I use that term very casually, Jordan, or Mrs. Ford, or whatever name she's using now. Lady Facile also filled me in on this trumpet trick that Mrs. Jordan used a few weeks earlier to ensnare the Duke. She claims she was an eyewitness to the escapade. Joseph isn't interested. But does anyone else want to hear this delicious details?
I do.
Me too.
Mrs. Jordan fascinates me.
Anyone else? No? Yes? It's settled then. Courtesy doth truly demand that a lady's wish is a gentleman's command.
Mary, what do you think, Moliere?
Definitely Moliere.
The story from the mouth of the horse is that Lady Bumfrey approaches Mrs. Jordan after a performance of She Would and She Would Not, with an invitation to one of her grantees. The inciting news that she shared with her was that the Duke of Clarence himself had requested. This was, of course, de rigueur and a familiar occupation for her ladyship.
You mean to say that she's the Duke's panderer?
Crudely, but very accurate. Well, then I am just getting to the delicious part. That was Mrs. Jordan's counter-proposal. And guess what that was?
Just get on with it.
You really are such a Puritan. You never appreciated my flourishes. Well then, here it is. Mrs. Jordan wanted to attend the tea in the livery of an under butler, and while serving the Duke, whispered to him that he, Mrs. Jordan that is, had a sister working below stairs, who was so enamored with the Duke's person that she longed to give herself to him right there and then. And brief, the inflamed Duke was told to sneak off in half an hour, equipped with the location and the key to the room. Oh, and one more detail. The butler told the Duke that his sister was shy, being a virgin, and required to wear a veil throughout their engagement. Rutting nature took its course, and within an hour the Duke returned a bit disheveled, but smiling like the cat who swallowed the furry mouse, as Lady Facile so poetically described him.
Then what happened?
Mrs. Jordan made her formal entrance in a dress only suitable for a milkmaid, as Lady Facile put it, and I must add, refused his advances towards her until after he moved into her bushy house to live with him. Nice name, that.
And the Duke has never been made the wiser, has he, by you chittering geese? But what you call her strumpet's trick reveals her true genius.
How so?
Regard everything that she learned in that 1 hour. First, that his expressed passion for her was a complete fraud. From that point to this, you can be sure that every vow that he has made to her, she has written on the rushing waves. She also learned his carnal vulnerabilities. Lazy intrigue with a sauce of naughtiness engaged safely within the walls of Lady Bumfrey's estate. Once satiated, he gravitated back to being the king's own sailor boy. By those markings, our savvy little Viola will be able to steer him wherever she wants to go.
You women are so cunningly lingual foxes. You are like iced cream in the mouth.
Wary hares, rather.
This is fun. What else do you think this stratagem of hers discovered?
I can only surmise. But because she is still with him, I believe that he passed her self-administered gag test. Consider how dangerous it would have been for her to register any amount of disgust on an unveiled face. That's a bit of honesty that she would never have recovered from. This way, she could explore every crevasse of the man without any risk.
Other than the pox.
Do you really believe that someone as careful to costume herself down to the last brass button of Lady Bumfrey's livery and pass herself off as a virgin would be naked to that eventuality? Henry, are you really such a child?
You've characterized the man entirely.
Then she reappears as little Bo Peep and has been royally rogering him ever since. So, Mary, this dressing like a man trick was what you tried to play with me?
Was she allowed to bring her children with her?
Where?
To live with the Duke at Bushy House?
Of course not. That indeed would have made it le scandal intolerable.
She and her fellow actresses may be the only free women in England. I especially marvel at how cleverly she has managed to retain this freedom while increasing her worth.
You have more to add?
Consider it more deeply. By maneuvering into such an inappropriate match, she has completely insulated herself from the slavery of marriage. The prince can never marry her, and no man would dare become the prince's rival. When her life with the prince becomes intolerable, and it surely will, she can pack her valise and slam the door. And by deserting the prince, she will enhance both her value and perceived morality. That is the exact opposite of a wife's leave-taking. Mrs. Jordan's almost £1,000 a year from the stage already exceeded that of most landed squires. It's certainly many times superior to her own, Herr Fuseli.
She certainly is not safe from the savagery of the gazettes and the lancing of Gilray's cartoons.
And every time her name appears on paper, hundreds more playgoers flock to bear witness to her disgrace and sneak a peek into the prince's You're with me.
Critical review really needs to critique more plays. Will you do that for me, Mary?
I will champion that.
Is she really paid £1,000 a year for wearing trousers on stage?
It isn't just about the trousers. As Viola, Hippolyta, not Chipotle, or Rosalind, her real danger to men is that she unleashes women's imaginations.
I do believe that nearly all revolutions begin on a stage. Beaumarchais' Figaro being an excellent example. Apropos Figaro, Beaumarchais, I forgot to tell you, Thomas, Godwin sends his apologies for missing our meeting. He had a prior engagement escorting Mrs. Jordan's fellow actress, Mrs. Inchbald, to the theatre to solicit a monitor investment in a new production of Holcroft's translation. If they succeed, however, it will probably land the whole company in a jail cell, right next to ours.
Godwin is so tedious. I'm certain she will give him the money just to stop his talking.
I could add some support to your argument, Joseph. Washington had us read aloud to the troops Addison's Cato the evening before the attack on the Hessians at Trenton. I read Juba. It did wonders to rouse the men's spirits. I think it also helped put them to sleep.
Before we bore ourselves to sleep, Father Christmas, what did you bring us in your sack?
Let's see here. For Will, I have freshly printed with your new engravings Mary's original stories from real life for children with conversations calculated to regulate the affections and form the mind to truth and goodness. Will, when your people pick this up, they immediately thumb to your engravings and buy it. inside is a token of my personal appreciation for your delightful images.
There's a 20-pound banknote in the book, which Kate quickly pockets.
You are too generous. We thank you for all your benevolence to us.
Now, Mary, don't pout. For you, this envelope is stuffed with pound notes. I can't keep your second edition of The Vindication on the shelves. And most curious to me is that nearly all of them are being bought by women. I never dreamed that there'd be a women's market for political philosophy.
Maybe it helped that you put Mary's name on the cover this time.
Mary's next book. How does a vindication of the rights of woman in considered refutation of Talleyrand, late Bishop of Arton, by the noted author Mary Wollstonecraft sound as a title? Joseph.
Like Inca gold.
What do you have for me?
Nothing can come of nothing, my ancient friend. But I can imagine a commission for a series of illustrations. How like you Paradise Lost?
I could be intrigued by such a proposition.
I rather doubt he will produce an Eve to my liking.
And finally, Mr. Payne, I have been carrying all evening a bank check in the amount of 1,000 guineas.
What's this for?
It is a benefactor's advance to encourage you to write the second volume of Your Rights of Man.
A gun butt pounds on the door.
Open up in the name of the crown.
I'll get it.
The spy, carrying a pistol and shackles, enters, pushing past Mary.
Out of my way, boy. I have a warrant here for the arrest of one Tom Paine.
I stand by the name Thomas Paine.
You do you? I didn't know you were so old a man. I arrest you, Thomas Paine, in the name of the crown on the charge of saying salacious comments about the king. I meant seditious tarnishments on the king's crown. Put these shackles on yourself.
No need for that. You'll go peaceably.
And who, Lord Pantalones, are you?
A close friend.
A fellow conspiratant, you mean? We got room in the cell for both of you.
Come along now, Mr. Payne. All shall be well. I will go with thee.
Just love me, Fuseli.
And with a kiss, we march on together.
Henry openly kisses Joseph on the mouth.
So, Payne's a poofter too.
The three men exit through the front door.
That is my cue to exit stage left. Will and Kate, thank you for all the kindness. And to my most loyal subject, Fanny, I dub thee Citizen Flute, a peer of the realm.
You swept me over the moon, my lord.
Will, here's the check that Father Christmas gave me so that you can bail him out of jail. Mary, follow me to Paris as soon as you can. It's out the window and over the garden wall for me.
Payne exits through the window.
Well, I don't know what I should do.
Mary, you've always known what you need to know.
I want. I want. It really is that simple. I just want to be able to want. And that's more likely to happen in France or Canada or Australia even than England in my lifetime.
Blake gets up off his chair and stops her, puts his Red Wolf French Revolution cap on her head, and kisses her on both cheeks in the French manner.
So it's out the window I go too.
Mary heads toward the window, hesitates for a few seconds, and then jumps out. Blackout. Annie Lennox's and Aretha Franklin's Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves plays through the curtain calls.
Just want to take a minute to thank these actors and our wonderful playwright, John Cruz.